So we wondered, our little humble UX team at Nationwide wondered, how might we get our business partners to make customer-centric decisions more frequently? How could we do that? So we did some research, and we went out and we thought, okay, if you're not the kind of person who thinks about the customer all the time, like we do, think about the user all the time, if you're a business person, the strange person of business people thinking about business things, what would incent you to make a decision based on a customer? We decided to focus on these two areas. Formalize CX processes and norms, and you'll kind of hear me use the term CX and UX interchangeably here. And then also, how would that decision align with their goals? So two main things, like they might want to do the right thing, but there might not be a process for it, they might not know how to do it. So can we build something for them that would help them with that? And then is that actually going to align to their goals and how they're measured? Because you're going to get what you measure. So if we can help incent changing the measurement structure of associates at Nationwide, we might incent them to think more about the customer. So we put together a proposal that we would create a framework that would help them do that. And we said that our framework should have two main components. So design principles, you'll probably also hear me refer to them as experience principles. These are things that should be used by everyone at Nationwide. Keep in mind, less than 50% of the people at Nationwide actually interface with customers. Most of us don't actually see the customers that we design for. Less than 50% do that, but these design principles would be used by everybody in their role. And then the moments that matter are really these places where it's really, really important that we show up. So it's a framework for kind of prioritization. We would hope that it would drive funding and prioritization of efforts. What are these moments that really are important? We thought if we could do that, we would help sort of uncomplicate or at least bring some order to this very complex ecosystem and truly put the customer at the center of everything that we do. Experience principles, how many of you are actually familiar with like Disney's experience principles, safety, courtesy, show, efficiency? Okay, so a good number of you. So it's a tiered structure that's intended to be applied across everything. So not just in face-to-face conversations, but those design principles, those experience principles should guide you when you're creating processes or props. In our case, props are really just like literature about financial services products or insurance products, but it should guide the design of all of these different types of things. Moments are these areas of focus, and you might think that the bigger the moment is, the more important it is, and we should always focus there, and that's not what we learned when we went out and talked to customers. Absolutely, we have to be there for them when they need us, when they're actually using our products. We need to show up very strong. But if we raise your premium and you get a bill and your bill's gone up, and we have, like everybody in insurance has raised your premium over the past 2 years, whether you've noticed or not, it's gone up. If we don't explain that in a transparent way on the bill, that helps decrease trust in us. And there's lots of examples of little moments like that if we don't get the design of that right as well, we're not going to be living up to people's expectations of us. So designing and launching the framework. The first thing we wanted to do is choose the team. So again, this is going to be used by everybody, so it wasn't as simple as just like picking a few business partners and a couple of engineers and getting into a room. We had to include people from legal and compliance and training and HR and finance, like all of these parts of the organization that we normally don't deal frequently with. So we went out and gathered input. This is a list of like some of the stuff that we brought in. We created this wall. We call this the Wall of Knowledge at Nationwide, and this particular wall was called the OMG wall, the Oh My Glossary wall. Tons of documents on there, a bunch of business strategies, previous research reports, associates that we surveyed. We went out and talked to intermediaries, we talked to customers. And for the business, we wanted to really understand from them, especially intermediaries, because they own the relationship with the end customer. What did customer experience mean to them? And how did they deliver a good customer experience? And we also wanted to know from associates, how relevant was this to their work? And usually we heard, it's not relevant, I don't deal with customers. So we knew there were a lot of minds we were gonna have to change there. We wanted to make sure we understood how difficult that was gonna be way up front. And then from customers, we really wanted to talk about these moments. When did they interact last with their financial services or insurance company? What was that about? What drove them to interact with us? How did they reach us? How did they feel? And how did that interaction ultimately impact their relationship with us? So we took all of these inputs and we started cutting them apart and sort of synthesizing them together. So you can imagine in our workspace, we have all these foam core boards, we have all these documents around, we got a bunch of pair of scissors and tacks, and we're just kind of like moving things around and organizing them. This went on for a couple of weeks, and I think it was in week 2 that I got really nervous about fire, because I realized this really wasn't documented anywhere except for the wall, and that's when we started taking pictures, and that's how they're in this report. And then we started creating draft action statements. So these are groupings of what we heard, and let's see if I can read some. I communicate in a clear, concise way. So these are actions that nationwide people would take in order to deliver a good customer experience. And then we brought everybody together for a Build It Together workshop. So I'm sure most of you have done co-creation activities. We all understand the power of bringing together your business partner and engineering and everybody building something together in the room. This was like that exercise on steroids, because it was 53 different business partners and all different parts of the organization brought together to take all of these action statements we had created and start massaging them and putting them into draft 1 of this framework. I'm going to go through some of the workshop activities, and I'm going to have to do this a little bit fast, so come and get me afterward. I wanted to include everything in this deck so you would have it afterward. First thing we did was just explain what design principles are, how they're used, so we could orient them around what they were building. And we wanted to talk to them about the tiered structure of principles. So principles at the top are going to be one clear, concise word. But to make them valuable, there also has to be an action statement. What does the nationwide associate do to bring that principle to life? And underneath that are behaviors. So these behaviors have to be written at sort of like the job functional level, because they would be different for somebody in security than they would be for someone who's in engineering or business or all of those different organizations. So we had people start taking these 26 principles and grouping them together in sort of clusters that made sense and could be rolled up into themes. And then we had them fill out these principle statements where they wrote a definition for it, and they had to give it a title. And then we had them prioritize them. So if you have these 26 principles and you break them down, but you can only go as small as like 5 or 6, which 2 or 3 were the most important to you? And then finally, we tried to get to that tiered structure by asking them which ones of these are baseline, which ones are more aspirational, which ones are really in alignment with our brand character and traits. Then we went through and explained to them what the moments that matter are and how those should be used. But they didn't get to give as much input on what those are, because the customers told us what those are. So here was the first draft framework of the moments. And it's a little bit different than a journey. It's a little bit different than a job to be done. And you have to think about the fact that what we were trying to do with the moments was find a way to bring all of these different products and businesses together in one framework. So we showed them this. We showed them where the draft moments started. And then we broke them into groups. We had about 5 or 6 people sitting at each table. And this was the one time in the workshop where our business partners took the lead. So if you were the leader of the pet insurance product and you're sitting at a table with a bunch of other cross-functional people, we asked them, hey, write down what are all the things you can do with a pet insurance product? What are all these actions you can take with a pet insurance product on these Post-it notes, and then hand them out to everybody else at the table and see if you can organize them against this framework. And the reason we did that is we wanted to see, was there anything that was missing? So we had this one over in the bottom left with a question mark where you could write in your own moment if you felt like there was something that there was a gaping hole. Luckily there wasn't, so we came up with the right 7 moments there. So we get everybody together, they're voting here. It was a long 2 days of work. And at the end of it, we had a first draft that was ready for research. So that was fantastic. We take that into research and we kind of validate it again with customers and associates and intermediaries that this general skeleton would work. We synthesized it a little bit more and we released the framework. So, and this all took like, honestly, 9 to 12 months by the time we started doing research, aligned everybody, organized everybody, found the right people, had all the meetings leading up to the workshop, conducted this workshop, took things back into research, and we end up with this. Actually, coming up with the framework wasn't the hardest part of this, but it was definitely a good start. We also validated that these high-level moments are the right moments, and we started having conversations about, all right, what's a good pilot? If we were going to focus on a learn and plan moment, what are a couple of different lines of business where we think that's really important to customers with that product? And let's come together and really understand together the emotions that are associated with that, what tasks people are trying to accomplish, and almost see if we can build like a repeatable design pattern that can be applied across product and line and business for that moment.